Dear participants, a warm welcome to one and all. After a week time, today in session 2, we are going to see about the research methods. In the first session, we came across the measurements in statistics. So the contents will be with as follows. First, we are going to see about the research design. Second, we have to know about the collection and classification of data. Then we will see about the sampling methods and their estimation. And then we are going to know about the hypothesis testing. Finally, we are going to see about the various principles in report writing. So first, when you are going to see about research, there is an anatomy of research. There are 7 steps. First one is you have to define the problem and their characterization. Second one, you have to specify the objectives. Normally, these objectives will be considered as hypothesis. Third one, you have to select a design, which is known as the research design. Fourth one is you have to study the population. Then you have to collect the data, analyze the data, and come to a conclusion. Normally, research will be classified using the parameters goal, time element, and statistical content. According to goal, the research will be classified as basic or pure research, applied research, and action research. What is pure research? It is conducted for knowledge gaining or shake of knowledge. What is applied research? Which is nothing but the application of pure research. That is application of the knowledge, the theories and the principles. What is action research? Action research is nothing but it's done for the immediate solution of the problems in the natural setting or classroom situation. We can take find the vaccine for corona. It's nothing but it came under the action research, and also it can be termed as applied research. According to time element, the research will be classified into 3 types. One is historical, descriptive, and experimental. That is past, present, and future events. And according to the data, the research can be classified as quantitative or qualitative. Even the words represents that the quantitative research will be uh, seek the quantitative description of the things observed in natural or manipulated setting. Like differ from it, qualitative is always seems to concentrate on the behavior or the characterization of an event. So the various types in quantitative and qualitative is given in the slide. So we are going to choose the research design. How can we choose? First, the before choosing a research design, we have to answer the following questions. Does it adequately test the hypothesis? Hypothesis is nothing but, as we are know earlier, it is the objective of the particular problem. Second question is, does it identify and control extraneous factors? Or results generalizable? Can the hypothesis be rejected or retained via statistical means? Is the design efficient in using available resources? So when we are taking or considering a research design, it should clarify these questions. Then only we can tell that particular research design is an apt one. So there are so many parameters to choose a research design. The important things have been listed here. One is level of knowledge. Second one is nature of the research phenomenon. Then nature of the research purpose, ethical considerations, feasibility, validity and availability of data, precision and cost. So the elements of research design has been given to you through a diagram. The five things are very important. One is the approach, another one is the method of data analysis, the population or sampling technique, tools and methods for data collection, and time and place of data collection. So they have a connectivity in between. So normally we have so many research designs. Here we have we can see some important one. First, in the broad category of experimental research design, there are true experimental design, quasi experimental design, and pre experimental design. In the non experimental research design concept, we have descriptive design, and they have so many features. Due to running short of time, I have skipped them. This PDF, this material will be given to you. You can see those features later in that PDF. So second one, in the same type, we can correlational or exposed factor design, which is an important research design, have been used by so many researchers. And developmental research design and epidemiological design. This epidemiological design always have a close contact with the disease research or in medical research. The last one is survey research design. So we have other type of research designs too. They are methodological studies, meta-analysis, secondary data analysis. So after fixing the research design, we have to go for collection of data. So there are two types of data. One is primary data, another one is secondary data. For data collection, uh, we have the observation, survey, and experimentation. For data compilation, we have either print or electronic format. So for data collection, we can use these experiments, telephone interview, questionnaire survey, direct observation, or personal face-to-face interview, or mail or postal questionnaires. In this corona time, we have so many mails that so many questionnaires are there about the corona stress problems or any other research oriented. So it's a example for mail or postal questionnaires. I have already told you that there are two types of data. So one is primary data. So now we are considering the collection of primary data. We we are going to see about the sampling method. Sampling method is one of the vital method to choose or collect the primary data. So here it's given to you. It's the overall census, that is the overall population is here. You have to study about the characterization of this population uh, to so we can check the sample. There are so many types of sampling. Normally it have been classified as two types. One is random sampling, another one is non-random sampling. In random sampling, individual units from the population are selected at random. In random sampling, every individual has an equal chance of being selected. So in non-random sampling, all the units of the population do not have an equal chance of being selected. Here the pictorial representation is given. So we can use these type of samplings with respect to our research. Normally we can use random, otherwise we can choose the non-random sampling. So in the random sampling method, there are probability sampling method, simple random sampling, cluster sampling, systematic sampling, and stratified random sampling. In another part, we have convenient sampling, judgmental or purposive sampling, snowball sampling, and quota sampling. So we have already seen that the mean median mode for a particular data in the first session. Here if we take a sample, we can apply those measurements for this sample too. So normally we can take the sample mean and sample standard deviation. The sampling distribution is roughly symmetric rather than skewed. In the previous session we have know about what is skewness and what about their coefficients. So it's one famous theorem. It's known as central limit theorem. The central limits theorem states that if individual observations have the normal distribution, then the sample mean of the selected random sampling of size n has the n of mu comma sigma by root n distribution regardless of the sample size n. So if the individual observations follows the natural normal distribution, then the random sample is also follows, that means the population is also follows the same normal distribution. This one is known as central limit theorem. Why we call it by the central limit theorem? Because the mu is the center point of the well shaped curve. So now we have to think about how to test this sample, or how to analyze the sample, or how can we judge whether our sample satisfy the whole population characterization, and how can we conclude that whether we have to select which of the given objectives. So for that we need hypothesis testing. There are 5 steps in the hypothesis testing. One is, first you have to choose the appropriate test. There are so many tests for this to check your hypothesis whether it is valid or not valid. So you have to choose the appropriate test to determine the correct result. Second one, you have to establish the level of significance. In the upcoming slides, we will discuss about the level of significance. What is level of significance? Third one, you have to formulate the statistical null hypothesis. As we have seen earlier, the null hypothesis is nothing but one of the given objective. Fourth one, you have to calculate the test statistic, the final answer. Fifth one, you have to compare the computed test statistic against a table critical value. For all the hypothesis tests, there is a fixed value table given to you. You have to calculate a particular value with the given data, and you have to compare it with the table value. Then only we can know that how the hypothesis is working, or we have to take in the hypothesis into the consideration or not. So first we have to know about what is hypothesis. Hypothesis is a predictive statement capable of being tested by scientific methods that relates an independent variables to some dependent variable. Normally it will be an objective. A hypothesis states what we are looking for, and it is a proportion which can be put to a test to determine its validity. So for an example, we have taken this as a hypothesis. Students who receive counseling will show a greater increase in creativity than students not receiving the counseling. So this is an example for the hypothesis. So when choosing the hypothesis, you have to take these tips for the consideration. First, it should be clear and precise. It should be very short, and it easily understandable. Second one, capable of being tested. First, stated the relationship between the variables. If you are taken a particular hypothesis, there should be a variable that should be tested. So limited in scope and multi and must be specific. So it should be consistent, it should be responsive, and it should have the empirical reference. So what is a null hypothesis? We will take it as H naught. It's an assertion that we hold as true unless we have sufficient statistical evidence to conclude otherwise. So, as in the example quote, the students who have undergone the counseling shows an increase in the creativity when compared to the students not undergone the counseling. So we will take the hypothesis, what is needed, what is we have to prove. That is, that should be taken as the null hypothesis. And for if we have to prove the null hypothesis, the value of mu is equal to mu naught. One is your calculated value, another one is your tabulated value. So what is alternative hypothesis? Alternative hypothesis is normally the negation of null hypothesis. So if we consider mu equal to mu naught is the representation of null hypothesis, the other three combinations, mu not equal to mu naught, mu greater than mu naught, or mu less than mu naught, they are all known as the alternative hypothesis. So what is the level of significance? Significance means the percentage risk to reject a null hypothesis. And when it is true, it's denoted by alpha. Generally, the level of significance will be 1%, that is 0.01, 5%, 0.05, or 10%, 0.1. And 1 minus alpha. If alpha is the level of significance, 1 minus alpha is the confidence interval in which the null hypothesis will exist when it is true. So normally in these three level of significance, we always take the level of significance as 0.05, that is 5%. So when we are taking the or testing the hypothesis, there must be some chances for the standard errors. And there are two types of error, type 1 and type 2 error. So consider these situations. When your null hypothesis is true, there are two options are there. Either you can accept the null hypothesis or you can reject the null hypothesis. If you reject the null hypothesis, which a true one, then that error is known as alpha error or type 1 error. The vice versa can be happen. That is, then null hypothesis is false, but you may accept it. That type of error is known as beta error or type 2 error. There are so many tests in the hypothesis testing. Here in this session, we are going to see about the top 4 important tests. The first test is Z test. The Z test formula is given to you. Z is equal to x bar minus mu of h naught, that is the calculated value of with respect to the null hypothesis, and sigma p, the standard deviation by root of n. N is the population. So when we are taking Z test for our consideration, the given condition is given, population should be normal and infinite. Sample size n should be large or small, it may be vary. Population variance is known, population variance is given to you, then only you can find sigma p. H alpha may be one-sided or two-sided. Then we can use the Z test. The next one is known as T test. For T test, the population is infinite and normal, but the sample size should be very small. But for Z test, you can take the larger sample is also. But here for T test, the sample size is small, the population variance is unknown. When we comparing it to the Z test, for Z test, the population variance should be known. So here we are instead of sigma p, we are using sigma s, the sample standard deviation, and it can be calculated using the normal standard deviation formula. So now we have go through about F test. for testing the equality of variance of two normal population. For Z test and T test, we are considering only one population, and the characterization of the given population is taken for consideration. But when F test is concerned, the populations, when you are taking two population in the same time, the populations are normal, the samples have been drawn randomly, observations are independent, there is no measurement error, H of alpha may be one-sided or two-sided. What is the formula for F to check the population variances? Is sigma square S1 and sigma square S2. In the previous session, we know that the square of the standard deviation is nothing but the variance. So sigma S1 square is the sample estimate of the corresponding first population. Sigma 2 is the variance of the second population. And there are degrees of freedom is connected with these type of tests. And what is the degrees of freedom? Degrees of freedom is considered with respect to the number of the size of the population. So the next one is chi-square test. And chi-square test is calculated using the formula chi-square is equal to sigma of observed minus expected value the whole square by the expected value. So observed is one is calculated from the data collected, expected is the tabulated value. So it's normally a given one for girls and boys in a particular class. Observation is 13, but a normal expected value is 10. That is the equal ratio. But the observation is nothing but 3 and 7. So what's the difference? For girls it's plus 3, for boys is minus 3. But when considering the formula, for girls the value is 0.9, for boys the value is 0.9. So the total chi-squared value is 1.8. So there are the tabulated value with respect to the level of significance. For 1%, 5%, and 10% is given. We have taken the 0.05 significance level. If the chi-square value is less than or equal the value of 0.05 probability, that is 0.05 significance level, we can take the null hypothesis. Otherwise, if the chi-square value is greater than the tabulated value with 5% level of significance, we will reject the null hypothesis. In the previous three tests also, we have such kind of formulas to accept or reject the hypothesis. So now we reach the final topic known as report writing. So after the research ends, the report writing will be started. If you want to write a effective report, your effective report content will be relevant to the relevant one to the research. It should be precise, it should be complete, it should be concise, it should be well structured, it should be well illustrated, it should be accessible, and it should be predictable. Then only it is known as effective. We can call it as effective report content. So I have given 20 fundamental best practice writing principles for an effective report writing. One is ABC, the accuracy, brevity, and clarity. So you should write the report by point. Another one is AEDA principle, the attention, interest, desire, and action. So tell the reader what you are going to tell them. Tell them and then tell them what you told them, which means you have to return the attention, you have to given them the interest and the desire. Finally, you have to make them read. Third one, think before you ink. It's a nice one principle, because in the report writing, the 80 percentage concentration on thinking, it's about your thoughts, it's about your thought process. The 20 percentage is about the presentation, how you inking, how you present it, how you write it. The fourth principle is the harmonization of the best of the best fit methods. You have to choose the best method or the purpose or a message to the reader. Fifth one is be strategic and selective. So your information should be relevant to your research. Sixth one is less is more. You have to follow the economical writing with low number of pages. Seven one is empathize. Eighth one is integrate or rational and creative. You have to stable both the left brain and right brain thought process here. It should be meticulous. A report writing should be known as like a marriage, which means the mingle of the thoughts and the letters. The 10th one is use of visual stimuli and techniques to complement, support, and promote a higher level of understanding. 11th one is the quality assurance. The report and the quality of the report should be very, very much plays a vital role in good report. 12, the purpose. As you are writing GPS, which means you have to concentrate or focus to the achievement of outcomes or objectives. The report will deliver us how the objectives have been satisfied or attained by the research. The next one is don't write to impress, write to promote. 14th one is the community of writers, the value of consultation and engagement. 15th one is the proper structure. So a good report has a proper structure. The 16th one is the waterfall approach. What is known as waterfall approach is the vertical alignment and synergy between the report findings, conclusion, and the recommendation. The 17th one is tour guide mentality, which means another person, which is not an unknown person, read your research. So your report, your research report should be direct them and orient them and inform them about your research, and it should be advise them and enlighten them and captivative the reader, the unknown reader. 18 one, adopt the storytelling mode. 19th one, you have to show your intelligence and the smart operational and strategic decision making in the particular report writing. And the last one is a strategic mindset, a developed structured holistic and well prepared business writing habits. It will help you to make a good report. So as I said earlier in my videos, take the 3T method and use it in your net preparation. Thank you.